Next to the war in Ukraine, and Russian officials say a fire has been extinguished at the Kursk nuclear power plant after air defences shot down a Ukrainian drone. The authorities say a transformer was damaged by falling debris, but radiation levels are normal and there's no wider danger. Ukraine has also been targeting oil refineries in recent weeks. Today is Independence Day in Ukraine, marking 34 years since Ukraine left the Soviet Union, and the fourth since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. President Zelensky has accused Moscow of doing everything possible to prevent a meeting with President Putin aimed at ending the war. Meanwhile, heavy Russian attacks on Ukraine have continued in the past week. As I mentioned, it is Independence Day today in Ukraine, and this is the scene live at just after 9:10 in the morning at Independence Square. And we can go live to the Ukrainian capital and talk to our correspondent, Katie Watson in Kyiv. Katie, I wondered if I could start first on what the latest on the Kursk nuclear power plant is.
So Russia has blamed Ukraine for this attack on the power plant. The power plant put out a statement saying that there was a drone attack. The drone got shot down, and as it fell, there was debris that caused a fire. That fire was put out. There was no effect on radiation. There were no casualties. But of course, the International Atomic Energy Agency has repeatedly called for restraint from both sides, when it comes to nuclear facilities. So this, of course, is concerning news that we've heard overnight.
It is Independence Day today. Are there any events planned around the anniversary?
Yeah, so the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, has just said he's arrived in Kyiv, so we'll be at events with the President. President Zelensky's also put out a statement put out a video talking about independence and the importance of independence in Ukraine, saying that such a goal is worth living for, and this is what we stand for. But events are more subdued than they have been in the past. In the past, there would have been big parades through the centre of Kyiv. Now, big gatherings like that are no longer. But still, it's a very important day here. Elsewhere, Ukrainians have been asked to make sure that, to mark this event. And of course, in the UK as well, the government has said that they will be raising the Ukrainian flag on government buildings, including in Downing Street. So the day is definitely being marked around the world as it is here in Ukraine.
I know you've been talking to a lot of Ukrainians over the past week or so. What is their mood at the moment?
I think people here are just waiting to see what happens. There's been so many talks, there's been so many back and forths. I think very few people really think anything will come out of any talks because they're war weary. They've been going through a war, since the full-scale invasion of 2022. It's been really, really difficult. Every day there are attacks. And then there are these diplomatic talks that, with promises to lead somewhere. But as yet, this is a country very much at war. And I think cautious optimism, perhaps, but also a feeling of we'll see it, we'll believe it when it happens.
Meanwhile, the fighting continues, both air attacks, drone attacks, but also on the ground as well.
Yeah, so, just a few days ago, there was an air raid siren that rang out, and the alert remained in place for about 8 hours and covered the whole country. But in the east of the country, Russia has been making some small gains, and it's still very difficult on the ground with, of course, casualties on both sides. And that's something that I think speaking to people here, there is a feeling of absolutely wanting this war to be over, wanting the killings to stop, and wanting some kind of peace. But what that means and whether Vladimir Putin will come to the table and sit down with President Zelensky, I think few people here in Ukraine really believe that would happen.
Katie Watson, live in Kyiv. Thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier I spoke to Matthew Smith, Associate Professor of National Security at the University of New Haven. He is a specialist on defence and intelligence, and I started by asking him for his assessment on those recent diplomatic efforts to end the war.
We're back to where Zelensky and other critics said we would be before the Alaska meeting, with Russia, dropping bombs and firing drones on Ukraine and killing civilians, and basically refusing to come to peace negotiations. So we're actually backwards from where we were then.
Is it just Moscow's strategy to just delay?
It is right now. Moscow needs to achieve a ceasefire, and so does Ukraine eventually. But Moscow can wait another 6 or 12 months, and Ukraine's on a tighter timeline. But right now, Putin is just going to drag this out as long as he can. There's no incentive to negotiate. He won't do any better on the battlefield by negotiating than by continuing to fight.
So, what does President Trump do next? He says he wants to sort the Ukraine war. We all know that he said he would do it within 24 hours when he became president, but obviously that didn't happen. He's now saying he'll decide in 2 weeks what to do about the war, and that he says it will be a very important decision. What do you think his decision is going to be?
Well, I think it's a fool's errand to try to answer what Donald Trump will do tomorrow. But hey, let's try. If I were going to put money out there, I would say that he's going to do the safe thing, which is to wash his hands from any negotiations again, to do what he did earlier in the summer, and see what happens. But he's an opportunist. If the opportunity arises again to try to move this forward, I don't think he's going to walk away from it. But right now, it seems that the safe political bet for him is to say, I tried, it wasn't my fault, moving on.
Meanwhile, the bombing and the fighting continues on the ground. Who would you say has the upper hand at the moment in the war?
In the short term, it's really hard to say. Russia is, continuing to gain ground, but it's slow and it's at enormous cost. We're talking a million casualties right now on the Russian side. That's more than double what we expect that Ukraine has. And so Russia is able to move, but they're not able to move decisively. And Ukrainian defenses are being shored up by time, and they're being shored up by European and American weapons that are coming in. So it's pretty unclear right now. We're sort of in the middle ground, and we'll see how this shakes out over the next couple months.
It is Independence Day today. What would you say is the mood amongst Ukrainians at the moment?
Defiance, exhaustion, recognition that this war is the real war of independence for Ukraine, that they celebrated in 1991 being free from Soviet dictatorship, and they're continuing to try to free themselves ultimately from what they see as a continuation of that, as of a Soviet dictatorship under Putin.
And what would you say is what they're looking for from the rest of Europe, which if President Trump does wash his hands, then it is going to be the Europeans that are going to have to move?
The Europeans have to supply the security guarantee. One of the ways that we see that happening right now is that Europe is putting money into helping Ukrainian firms produce weapons on EU soil and then to go back to Ukraine. So they're building out a robust industrial complex that's really a commitment to long-term security. And the next thing that Ukraine wants is EU membership as fast as they can get it.